The characteristics of the movement. Social realism has been renowned for describing real-world scenarios, and up until now, it is highly seen through a lot of places, mostly on social media, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other well-known platforms that all people have access to information about society and such. It aims to draw attention to the real socio-political conditions of the working class, to critique the power structures behind these conditions. Social realism gives accurate portrayals of the scene and character without embellishments. The concept is the term used for work produced by painters, printmakers, photographers, writers, and filmmakers. It is mostly pointed at political and economical issues. It shows the flaws of human nature such as poverty, greed of power, etc. These flaws are then portrayed in artworks that can let people see what is happening in other places that they cannot see. To have a deeper knowledge about social realism, let us start with its characteristic and how it all started. In 1900, a group of realist artists created a loosely organized society that became known as the Ashcan School. The Ashcan School was founded by the well-known American painter and educator Robert Henry. The group is famous for its efforts to paint, photograph, and etch the busy city and streets of New York at a time when industrialization was beginning to drastically alter the lives of many of the people who lived there. Many realism artists are thought to have had political influences in their works, which clearly highlight the origins of social realism and its general goal.
For the movements that influenced its rise as well as its demise, here are some artworks and their authors that partly gave social realism a rise in society. An example of this is the iconic painting of the American Gothic by Grant Wood, and the photograph Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange are often referred to as exemplar pieces of social realism art. The concept was an art movement brought on by the Industrial Revolution in Europe and the Great Depression in America. The primary theme of socialist realism is the building of socialism and a classless society. In portraying this struggle, the writer could admit imperfections but was expected to take an optimistic view of socialist society and to keep in mind its larger historical relevance. Following the sudden rise and popularity of social realism and socialist realism, the predominant form of approved art in the Soviet Union declined from its development in the early 1920s to the eventual fall from its official status in the late 1960s until the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991. During this, other countries have started to employ the prescribed canon of art.
Socialist realism's recent entry in the history of modern art began with the more acceptable artists, ones whose lack of political zeal made them palatable to post-communist audiences. Such was the case with Van Gogh, who had never been an important political figure. Social realism became an important art movement during the Great Depression in the United States in 1930s. As an American artist movement encouraged by New Deal art, social realism is closely related to American scene painting and regionalism. Socialist realism refers to the official sanctioned propaganda art of the Communist Party in the old Soviet Union, Communist China, Cuba, and other communist countries. Social realism refers to the movement of the 30s and 40s, which was made popular in the United States and Mexico. Concentrating on the daily lives of the people, it is said that both have similar goals because many of the artists were socialists or communists. But it was the spontaneous rooted artistic movement rather than an official mandated one. Social realists painted because they wanted to show the people what is happening in a form of art that holds deep meaning, while social realism painted the way they wanted to because they were ordered to or they had to under the Communist Party decision.
The cultural significance of the movement. As for the cultural significance, art associated with social realism during the Depression era was said to evolve from the Ashcan urban movement, which responded to the social, economic, and political conditions of the time, which has brought an effect on the culture of the people around that time. Realist painters, working in a turbulent era marked by revolution and vast social change, replaced conventional art's idealized ideas and literally conceits with real-life happenings, offering society's margins the same weight as great history paintings and analogies. Socialist realism mostly displayed a bland and predictable range of artistic products when compared to the eclectic variety of the 20th century Western art. In fact, Western critics satirized socialist realism by describing it as girl meets tractor. A lot of peasants and workers, particularly in factories and collective farms, were painted in happy, muscular smiles during the Stalin years. Many heroes were depicted in portraits to serve the dictator's cult of personality. Consequently, socialist realism stressed brigand adherence to party doctrine and has frequently been criticized as detrimental to real, unfettered art or merely a means of censorship.
For more ideas and artworks that relate to social realism, here are some major works that gave a big impact on the movement. Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange. In 1936, while working for the Farm Security Administration of the U.S. government, Dorothea Lange took this striking image of a migrant mother with her children. This image presented the desperation, hunger, and poverty that the Americans suffered during the Great Depression. Next is The Passion of Sacco and Vanzetti by Ben Shahn in 1932. Standing over the corpse of the two Italian Americans, Sacco and Vanzetti, who have been executed after a rigged trial, are the three commissioners that vindicated their verdict. And on the upper left is the trial judge that passed their sentence, taking an oath. Two commissioners offer lilies as a symbol of purity, as they show expressions of people who do not look like mourning. This artwork of Ben Shahn depicts the injustice that a lot of people suffered from. The Subway by Jose Clemente Orozco in 1928. The Subway by Orozco depicts the three shadowy figures of the passengers, imparting a sense of melancholy view. This highlights the city's urban expansion and changes in social character. Itak sa Puso ni Mang Juan or Dagger in Old Juan's Heart by Antipas del Otavo in 1978. It features Mang Juan standing sideways, looking tired and worn out in front of a wall mural, illustrating a Filipino worker. The dagger-like sea in the Coca-Cola background, pointing at Mang Juan's heart, shows the capitalism in the society and exploitation of workers like Mang Juan.